welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL offseason supporter series. And we got to keep footy in hands. I keep finding supporters that want to sit down and have a chat. And ladies and gentlemen, I found a very, very awesome guest to join me today. Michael, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for asking me to join your podcast.
Well, from what I see on your Twitter account, I think this is going to be quite a fantastic chat because I think the club that you support, for the people that are looking in the YouTube video, it's kind of going to be a given, but we will, for those that are listening on the podcast, I will keep it a secret for just a little bit longer. You have a lot of years following this club, so I got to find out a little bit more. So before we dive into the footy, let's go into you personally. I like finding out a little bit about the person other than footy, a little bit behind the supporter. So just a little bit about yourself personally, what you'd like.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll start with working my working background, and currently I work for myself in an organization that, well, it's like a franchise group. So what we
Mm-hmm.
do is we look at expenses in large companies, and we try and reduce their expenses for them. Each of us around the world, there's about 700 of us, including two or 300 in the US. It's quite a big practice over there. And each individual has to run their own business. They have to source their own clients and then assist with reducing their costs. And personally, I specialize in freight. So I look at freight costs for a company. And just to give you an idea, some of my clients might spend $2, $3 million, $7 million, 5 million, etc. And if I can get a good savings, well, then I will share in those savings. If I can't get a savings, well, I've done all the work for nothing, really. So that's my working background. I've been married for almost 43 years. So I did get married very young, still going strong. And I have one daughter, and I'm a son of an immigrant into Australia. Um, and that's how I sort of started my footy life too, because my father loved the footy. So yeah, that's a little bit about me in
All
general
right, that
terms.
all right, that is fantastic. And we will stay on the footy. I gotta ask this. I love this because I love hearing the passion about it. What is your favorite thing about the sport of football?
I guess it's a game that keeps your attention every moment. Like it's not like some games where you can turn away for 5 minutes or something. There's always something happening. The action, it's fast paced. The athleticism is incredible. Um, the courage of players to just they can be tackled from any angle, whether it's from the back, the side. Unlike some other sports, like I'm not going to have a go at other sports, but like say for example rugby or gridiron or whatever, the guy's coming at you and you're going to cop it. But with football, you don't know who's coming for you, so it's just the action that I love.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love it too. One of the things that I've always enjoyed it is a 24, it is a 365 sport. You never
Oh
know
yeah.
where it's coming from, which is
Oh yeah.
absolutely elite. So it keeps you on your toes, and sometimes it makes you go, you kind of panic a little bit when you have the footy. So I completely agree with that. So I'm going to test you. I'm going to test you a little bit. I want you to go back. Can you remember your earliest footballing memory?
Okay. One of my earliest football memory is in the 60s when I was about, would you believe, around 3 or 4 years old, sitting on my dad's shoulders at a game. And I can't remember much about the football, but I can picture myself sitting on his shoulders and watching the game. It was just, that's when I really got interested when I was a little kid. So yeah, that's one of my earliest memories.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I will let you do it. Anybody, like I said, anybody in the YouTube video, the plaque behind this gentleman here tells what club it is, what's the club that you support, and just a little bit about how you came to support them.
Okay, I support Western Bulldogs, who actually were called Footscray Football Club. They still are, but they call themselves Footscray Football Club, trading as Western Bulldogs. And how did I come to support them? Well, I think I mentioned earlier that my father came to Australia in 1951, and he and his mates sort of lived in the area, the Footscray area, the suburb of Footscray. and they started going to games, and they sort of fell in love with it. And then when he got married and then had a child, and once I was old enough, he started taking me to games, and we were within walking distance of the ground because we played out at what was called the Western Oval those days, now called VU Witten Oval. And we would go to all the home games. I can't remember going to the away games because my father was quite busy, but we went to all the games. I remember as a 5, 6 year old walking along Barclay Street, which is the main street sort of where the ground is located, and walking along there, going to the games, and I just kept on going, and I just absolutely loved it. A little bit of a background there also with the name change and everything. We're a club that hasn't had a lot of success over the years, and then in 1997 or the end of 97, I think it was 97 or 96, no, end of 96, a group took over the club, running of the club, decided to change the name of the club, the jumper, just a little bit of the configuration of the jumper, and they became Western Bulldogs, and tried to appeal to people outside of just the Footscray area, because we've been starved of success for a long time, and they just decided that if we change the name and appeal to more people in the western suburbs of Melbourne, we might grow bigger and better. And now a whole generations have grown up. All they know is Western Bulldogs. So it did have an impact. But having said that, the club started in 1877, 77, 78. But officially it's still 83. But there was a club around in 77, and didn't really join what was called the VFL back then until 1925. So they stayed in the VFA, which was the Victorian Football Association, and actually was the first major association to play football. And then there was a breakaway in the 1890s. Well, when I talk to some of my friends in the UK, and they support some of the big teams, whether it's Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, and when you tell them that the club started back then, they're just amazed that these clubs started in the 1800s, and their club only probably started at the same time. So yeah, so we were in the VFA. We won 9 premierships, and then the VFL decided to expand a bit because it was only a very small competition, but it had all the elite clubs included. And we joined, but we didn't get a premiership till 54. And then we were starved of a premiership. We hardly even played in any grand finals. We've only ever been in about 3 grand finals. So four grand finals. So, and we won a premiership in 2016 against Sydney Swans. Which of
Trust
course
me, I will never forget that. But I will say this. It was a bittersweet one. As sad as I was for the Swans to lose it, I was super happy for the Doggies fans, and I had plenty of Doggies supporters who I knew at the time. I was so happy for the club because you could just tell that it was a lot like the Swans in 2005, the long drought in
yes.
the release of just the excitement of getting that chance to win a premiership. So 100% understand with that. So you said your father kind of helped grow your love of the club. How is the rest of your family? How is the rest of your family? Is everybody's Western Bulldogs fans, or did you have some breakaways to other clubs?
No one sort of broke away. Everyone follows the Western Bulldogs. Not that it's a big family or anything like that. I'm the most passionate. My brother doesn't really follow the footy, but if you asked him who he followed, he'll say Western Bulldogs. My 2 sisters live overseas now, but even they still sort of see how the guys are going. Yeah, it just sort of, because we lived in the area. We loved the game and all of that. But we did move when I was about 4 or 5 years old. No, a bit. No, probably about 6, I think. When we moved out to another suburb, quite a distance, but we'd still go to the games, each week, and follow the doggies. And look, going through in the 60s, we hardly even won a game. It was so bad. And I don't know how I kept following them, because you'd go to school and, all the kids would make fun, pardon me, would make fun of you and say, why are you following that loser mob, and all this
Hmm.
sort of thing. But I just stuck with them all the way through. Yeah.
But that's the best part though. I love when you stick fat to a team because then when you do have success, it makes it even sweeter.
Oh,
Absolutely,
it's so
absolutely love
enjoyable.
it. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll stay in this realm. It'll be interesting for me for this one. Is can you remember the first Dougie's item that you were ever given or bought?
Oh, okay. That's a good one. Um, Okay, so when I said we moved away from the area, but then my father did go back about 2 years later to help out his cousin who ran a shop, and we had some friends, and the woman that uh, yeah, there was a couple that they were from Tassie, but they didn't really follow the footy, but she was an avid knitter, so she would knit jumpers and whatnot. And she made me my first jumper. So she knitted that jumper, and I wore that very proudly
That
because
is,
those days, there wasn't a lot of stuff you could actually
mm-hmm,
get. Like it wasn't the merchandising wasn't as good as these days. So a
mm-hmm.
lot of people hand knitted jumpers or beanies or scarves or whatever it might be. Um, but yeah, that was my first item.
That's fantastic. I don't know if I want to ask you, do you still have it or is it something that's unfortunately seen better days?
Uh, yeah, look, I was very angry that my mother gave it away when I grew out of it and everything. She gave it away to one of my cousins who was also an avid supporter. And it's one of the things that I wish I still had, to this day. Yeah.
Alrighty. So, and I know you're again, you have to have a lot of passion for the club to stay with it, even though so many years of down years. But I like hearing people describe their fandom. For me, I love hearing people describe it because you can't nobody's going to fan the same way. There is no perfect fan because everybody kind of does it their own way in the way that suits them. So I like hearing people kind of, can you describe to me your fandom of the Western Bulldogs? Are you someone that you go to every game that you possibly can, you buy the merchandise, you go see the players whenever they're out in town? Or are you just one of those that you go see them, but you're not going to go out of your way in any way?
Oh, okay. Well, I do go to every single game in Melbourne. I go to some of the interstate matches. I would say that I'm a mad supporter, really. I'm part of a football forum where we discuss, the things, to do with the club and everything. And if you saw me, if you saw my name on there, which is yeah, if you saw my name on there and the number of posts that I've recorded, it's over 50,000.
That is awesome.
That's over about how many years? Probably about probably 15, 16 years. But the next closest to me is about 25 or 30,000. So I don't know how it got to 50,000, but I've got an opinion on everything about the club. I also join other things like I go to the functions, but I don't run. If I see a player in the street, I don't. I'm not one to go and disturb them and run up to them and say, "G'day, how are you?" And all this sort of thing. I've never been
Mhm.
that way because I, I respect their privacy. But if there's a function and things like that, I'll mingle and talk to players, and yeah. So I'd say I'm an avid fan.
Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. So you kind of answered this question a little bit earlier. I just want to remember. So you said your first ever Western Bulldogs game that you ever attended was when they were still Footscray, and you said you were 3 years old.
3 or 4 years old, yes.
All righty. It's always
That's
interesting
from
to
my
see.
memory.
Yeah, you never know, but hey, that's a long time for some people to be able to see it when you're in your single digits. So that is an accomplishment. So the next one that I have, this one's always fun because this is like choosing your favorite child if you have multiple children. Do you have a favorite player of the past for Footscray, and do you have a favorite player currently on the Bulldogs list?
Right. Oh, yeah, that is very difficult to answer. Um, I think it depends on the different eras, but I think one of my favorite players of all time is Chris Grant.
Mhm.
He's now part of is the football director for the club, but he was just an amazing player. And I saw him play in his first year when he was 17 years old, which you can't do these days because they've raised the age of drafting players. But he was actually drafted when he was 15 or something like that. But he didn't play for a few years. He was still growing and whatnot. But as a 17-year-old, he was just you just looked at him and you thought, oh my god, this guy is amazing, and he's still the youngest player to ever kick more than 50 goals as a 17-year-old. So he was just fantastic. And the current players, well, you can't go past the captain Bontempelli. He is just an amazing, amazing player. He wins games for you. He's just a terrific bloke when you meet him. Yeah, he's got to be one of the best. He'll be one of the best of all time when he's finished his playing career. He'll be noted as the best,
Yeah, hard to argue
in
there,
my
Bon.
opinion. In my
You know,
opinion.
you are not going to get any argument from me. I think Bontempelli is one of those guys that I've done some chats and I've asked people what's one player you could steal from another team, and I've heard his name come up because he's such a unique player and he's so good in so many different areas of the game. It's hard to argue that. So I think I know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it because I gotta hear it. Most memorable moment as a doggy supporter.
Well, it's got to be the grand final, obviously. Um, is the do you mean a moment in like something that happened in a moment, or
Or like you said, a grand final, like the moment when the siren, like a game, a moment, like the siren going off in 16 when you know you've won the cup. Then seeing Luke Beveridge handing his medal over to
right?
yep, the
One of the
win.
most,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I see what you mean. I know the grand final was like the most exciting and memorable thing, but one of the things where it was just so incredible was the preliminary final against GWS,
Hmm.
and I've never been so like nervous in my life. My legs were, I mean, I was at the game in Sydney. My legs were stiff as a board. They were so sore afterwards because I was so tense because we'd gone through so many preliminary finals before that, like 9 or 10 in the past, like the years before. And we'd missed out, like whether it was a goal or a point, or we managed to just lose it somehow. And that was the feeling of we're going to lose this, we're not going to win. My mate was, we were, I think, a few points up. It was only minutes to go. My mate was texting me from Melbourne saying there's only 50 seconds to go. There's only 40 seconds to go. But when Jake Stringer had the ball, kicked it, kicked the ball in the air, it was going to land in Tory Dixon's hands. And as the ball was flying through the air, everyone knew that this is it. We are in the grand final. And the roar, the absolute roar from only 20,000 fans there because it's a small ground. If it was played at the MCG, it would have been, 60,
Hmm.
70, 80,000. But it was played at a small ground. But the roar, I've never heard a roar like that. And that was the most exciting thing we're finally in the grand final. Like it was just incredible.
Yeah, the relief, just the
Oh,
relief
yeah, the
off your
relief.
shoulders,
Oh,
and you
yeah,
knew
the
you
relief.
had a chance. You had a chance to play for a premiership. So, which
That's
is all
right.
you ask for as a fan, as a supporter, is that you want the chance. You want the chance to play in that game on the grand final. Whether you win it, you lose it, you got there. Which 100% agree. And like I said, that was an incredible game. The fact that Luke Darcy got to call it on the
Oh,
announcing,
yes,
which I
yes.
think he almost made it better because of the fact that you could tell he was trying to be as neutral as he could, but he couldn't hold it in. He's too much a doggy, and he let it fly. Absolutely loved it. So we've talked about the past. Now let's jump to the present and
Right.
just this last season.
Yes.
I know the Donkeys made finals, but I think for some people, this might have been a disappointment. What were your thoughts on last season?
Okay. Yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointment because after being in the grand final, we thought we've got to finish top four. It's got to be top four. But for some reason, the chemistry just wasn't there amongst the players. As much as they tried hard, I can make excuses of people being injured or
Hmm.
whatever, but it just felt like it didn't feel the same as 2021. It was just the chemistry wasn't there. The players didn't seem to bond as a team. And look, we heard a few issues. There were a few issues behind the scenes here and there with some players not agreeing with each other or whatever it might have been. But for as a fan, it was very, very disappointing. Even though we made the finals at the end, we should have finished top four,
Oh,
especially with the team that we've got as well. I mean, the talent in that team at the moment is probably some of the best talent we've ever had. Even probably talent wise, probably even better than 2016. But 2016, we just bonded as a team. It wasn't individuals; it was a whole team effort, and that's what you need. You don't need the talent. It's not just the talent that's going to get you over the line. It's got to be the whole team. Everyone's got to play well together.
yep, it's
And
the
we didn't
work.
have it. We
Yep.
didn't. Yeah.
Yep, the work ethic in 2016 was through the roof. There was nothing better than that. And
Oh, it
I
was
think
incredible.
this last year the issue you had and there was inconsistency with injury too. Because in again, you're
Yeah.
not saying excuses, but it throws off the connection. It throws off the connection. You had the great midfield. I mean, there's no arguing when you have Bontempelli, you have Trelaw, you have Hunter, you have Dunkley, you have all of those great stars in the midfield, but there was just something missing inside
Yes.
forward 50 that there was just nothing that you could figure out. Bruce was coming back from an ACL, so you missed him most of the season.
Yep.
Jamarl Ugle-Hagan still he shows flashes
Learning.
of brilliance, but he's still not there. Naughton is Naughton. There's very few words to say how great the guy was, but I mean he was such a gladiator. I felt horrible for him towards the end of the year because you could tell he was hurt, but he was trying to play through it to give the target, and it just never really gelled, I think, this season the way it had in 2016 and even last year when you made it to the grand final. So
Yeah. The whole defensive side broke down.
mhm,
So we were just allowing too many goals to come through, and somehow the defense just wasn't there. The system wasn't there, and I don't think really we had the players in that defense that we needed to go that one step further. It just
mhm.
yeah, just wasn't working.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh well.
hey, it's another season. You make the finals. You can thank Collingwood. You can thank Collingwood or Carlton, whichever you want to do on that one. But you made the finals. But you know what you need to work on for the next year. So we jumped through it. The season's over. I'm one of those. I keep an eye on the off season as much as I can. I keep an eye on the draft. I keep an eye on the sign and trade period. Do you keep an eye on that? And then if you do, what are your thoughts on some of the doggies' moves over this off season?
Okay. Yeah, no, I do. I do keep a. Of course, I do. I follow every training session and every player that comes in. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we brought back Liam Jones, but he is 32 years old and he was a year out of footy. So if he could get back to what he was before, he'll make a good fullback. And we brought in Lob as a sort of like a. Some people are questioning why do we bring Lob in, but we do need a second ruck, and we just haven't had that second ruck to help Tim English. And that's one of the also dangers for the season is that if he goes down, the stocks are thin there. We did recruit a couple of guys that I think will be good for the future, but the young kid from WA, I've forgotten his name now. He's a tall, intercepting backman. He's going to take a couple of years. He's very skinny. He's not really ready for AFL, but he's a good future prospect. And then there's a young, dashing forward, small guy, Clark, is it? He he's going to be very good. We need someone small down there that can sort of crumb the ball. Even though we've got Waitman, but Waitman's not really. He doesn't really play like a small. He plays a little bit tallish or medium
Mhm.
for his size, and he can take a ripper mark and everything. But we need the crummers and things like that. So we've got quite a few good players. Yes, we'll miss Dunkley, but as you said before, our midfield is loaded up, so that'll give a little bit more opportunity to some of the other midfielders. Um, a few of the guys have been going down to watch them well, from the forum that I'm on, and I'll give it a plug, woof.net.au. So WOOF .net.au. A few guys go down to training and come back and report, and they said that the boys have been burning the track up, looking really good, really sharp. The camaraderie is incredible. So it's going to, I think it's going to be a good season just by looking at, you know, from the preseason, we're all top four, aren't we? But no, I think they're looking pretty good.
It's the good old fashioned paper. It's the good old fashioned paper premierships.
Yeah, that's right. Like when you try to put the 22 down, you think, now who do I put here? And they're all champions, and
Yep.
I can't fit them all in, but in the end, it works out.
Yeah, it does, and I'll go a little bit more in depth on this one. I know that you have the young Darcy in the team, and he kind of made an impact towards the end of the year. Do you think the move of Lob coming in, do you think that pushes Darcy to the back line, or do you still kind of keep him as that fluctuating forward occasionally, still kind of developing? Because as tall as he is, as talented as he is still a growing young man.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's really is tall. I was down the street recently getting a sandwich, and he was standing a couple of people ahead of me, and oh my God, he's so tall, it's just ridiculous, really. But yeah, look, it is an interesting one. A lot of people think, oh yeah, we should be playing Darcy down there or whatever. I think his body's not ready for that. He's, I think he'll probably won't play like he won't play every game. I think he'll play about 10 games, maybe 12 games. And I think he might go down the back. The good thing is that we've got that extra on the bench this year, and we can afford to have one more tall guy sitting on the bench. But yeah, look, it's a hard one with Darcy. I think he'll be the understudy to Lob. So Lob is already 30. Maybe he's got 2 or 3 years. By that time, Darcy should be able to replace him. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be
Because I mean,
interesting to
look, he's
see.
18 or 19 years old. I mean,
Yep.
these guys don't mature till they're 24, 25, these talls.
Hmm.
Look at Tim English. He's taken a long time to mature and fill his body out. And yeah, he'll take time.
Awesome. Okay. I'm one of those that my next question, I wrote it out a few years ago, and I still kind of I roll my eyes a little bit on it. Is that I asked, what are your expectations? And for me, I hate the word expectations because it's a connotation of this is supposed to happen. And I think we all know, we've all watched footy enough to know that as soon as you think something's going to happen, some cataclysmic thing could happen and could totally and completely change it. So what are your thoughts going into next season? Are you a team that you should be a finals team? Do you think this is a top four side? Are you a flag contender? Kind of what are your thoughts that way?
Look, I'm not just speaking as a diehard supporter, but I really believe that with the talent we have, and if we can produce same sort of form like in 2021, we should be top four. Really, I mean, it doesn't take. It's only a few games. At the end of the day, when you look at how many games did you win versus the top four in I mean, I'm talking about the eight within the eight. It's only a few games, and I think we can win quite a few more games than what we did in the past this past season. And I'm expecting top four again. We've got, as I said, we've got the talent. This is our chance. We've got the tall guys. Like Norton's 22 or 23 years old. I mean, he's going to be, if he can stay injury free, he's going to be sensational. So the forward half is pretty well set. We brought in Jones. Hopefully, Keith is injury free. Gardner is another year older and probably stronger. So I think we've got the talent all over the ground. One area probably, is the wings. We've lost Hunter, and he had a shocking year personally, mental health and whatnot. But he's now gone to Melbourne, which is a big shock, really, that
Hmm.
because his father played for the club. But I really am expecting top four. We should be up there. If I have a little bit of be a little bit pessimistic, I don't think we'll be less than top six. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got to be in that top four, top six, but it's got to be top four because it's too hard of a road in the finals to just try and keep winning all the
Mhm.
time. You have to have that double chance in the top four. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult to win a premiership.
Yep, and I completely agree with that. So I'm gonna have some fun now with this next question. And this is always I love this one. I'm gonna install you as the Dougie's list manager for a day. And your goal is to bring in one player from the competition. All the other 17 clubs are completely okay. You can nick one player from any of the other 17 clubs. Who's the one guy you bring to the Doggies and why?
Oh wow. Okay, I'm just trying to think. I think personally, I still think we're a little bit risky in the back line. So we do need one top class tall backman. So I'm going to go with Darcy Moore. Is it Darcy Moore? Darcy Moore from Collingwood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he's a tall, he's about 200. Because what I'm scared of well, not scared of, but what we've always been bitten by, and that is these tall forwards. They're not getting any shorter. And you look at Lynch from Richmond, and you look at the King brothers and all these other guys. They're so Hawkins. They're so bloody tall, and you really do. Height does make a difference. With players, and obviously talent. You need talent and whatnot. But as the game goes on, they don't get any shorter, these tall forwards. And I think someone like that, like a Darcy Moore, bring him in, it would be fantastic. That would really complete the back line.
Yeah.
And,
Hey,
and all due respect to Liam, Liam
mhm.
Jones, but he's 32 and he's getting on. And that's one area that I think, well, is he going to make it or not? Everyone's wondering. So,
Mhm. Yeah, no, a great pick, a great pickup. I would not see anything bad there. He would that would be a hellacious addition to that back line of the Doggies, and instantly would make them legitimate flag contenders if that were to
for
happen.
sure.
So I'm going to ask this next question, and I know it's a little bit of pie in the sky because of, and I'll kind of preface this. The MCC has a 50-year contract with the MCG being the grand final host, but in 2020 and 2021, we saw the grand final find its way outside of Victoria up to the Gabba and out to Optus Stadium. And I was surprised to hear media starting to kind of think, is it time that the AFL look to maybe make the grand final a traveling grand final, a little bit like the Super Bowl over here in the States?
Right.
But I love the discussion because I know it's not going to happen because of the contract, but I really want to
Yep.
hear, as a Melburnian, do you really, 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 does it have to stay traditional at the MCG, or would you be okay with maybe once every 4 years seeing the grand final find a way to Adelaide Oval or Optus Stadium or up to Sydney or up to Queensland again?
Yeah, that is a hard one. Look, I'm a big traditionalist when it comes to football. I hate rule changes. I hate every single rule change that ever comes in. I hate changing things. The MCG is quite. By the way, I live across the road from the MCG. But anyway, the MCG is just a magical place, and I think tradition-wise, it's been there the whole time. Um, it is just an incredible stadium. I don't think the other states have got a decent enough stadium. You won 100,000 at a grand final. I mean, Super Bowl might move around, but you've got the big stadiums around the US. But in Australia, we don't have anything. Optus, I think, over in Perth holds about 60,000,
Mm-hmm.
and Adelaide's about 50, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't have
53,
the
54,
stadiums.
somewhere around there. So,
Yeah, I mean, the MCG is just part of tradition. It's been there for like 150 years. Um, it's had the grand finals from day one, with more than 100 years of football. And no, I prefer it to stay there.
and again, there's not a problem. I was just fascinated that some Victorian media were discussing it, and I just found it fascinating. So I had to ask,
Yeah.
especially considering you get different answers. Some of the interstate clubs, the New South Wales, the Queenslands, the SAs, the WAs, they're a little bit more amenable to it. Many of the Victorians are very much it needs to stay here. So, and
Yeah.
I 100% understand that. And again, as you said, it's 100,000. I think the next biggest one is a core stadium in Sydney with 80. I think is the next biggest one in the entire country. And then Optus at 60, I believe, are the last figures that I saw. And most people say a core stadium is not worth going to if you talk to Sydney people. So just all depends on who you talk to. So we'll jump from the grand final to we'll jump to this upcoming season. We have the NRL ripoff that's called the Gather Round for the AFL, and I'm very
Oh, yes.
fascinated because I'm getting mixed reviews. I'm getting some people that are super excited for all 9 games being in SA, being in Adelaide, and kind of the Adelaide area ish. So I have to know as a Melburnian and as a Victorian, what do you think of Gather Round being in SA? And then if you do like it, do you plan on going?
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, I think yeah, I do plan on going. I think we're playing Port Adelaide on the Saturday night or something. Um, look, I don't mind things like that. Like, the old days they used to have carnivals,
Mhm.
like football carnivals, and they'd have all the states showing up in Tassie or something, and having like a carnival atmosphere. And look, I don't mind the idea. Whether South Australia is the place to go, maybe it should have been in Queensland or something to try and promote football more, because the northern states aren't really into AFL. They're more, rugby league. But yeah, look, I don't mind. I don't mind what they call the gather round, and having like a competition like that. Just something a little bit different. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
And we get one more round of footy this year. We get 24 rounds
Well,
instead of
true.
23. So I love it. So no,
Yeah,
it's just very interesting. Like I said, there are people that I talked to my North Melbourne fan and she is very, very against it. Maybe it's also because North Melbourne got like a really they got like I think the Barossa Valley. It was one of those. There's only like a 3,000 seat attendance for the place they're going to be
yeah, that's
playing
the
at.
only
So
thing.
it is one of those if they do go out to country, South Australia, which again, you I kind of understand you wanted not just play it at Adelaide Oval because it's not going to be able to do 9 games. But you would think Glenelg, Norwood, and some of the big SANFL teams would be able to host all the games, but they really wanted to get one into country, South Australia. And unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Do I agree with the scheduling? I think it's a little funky. I think there's some teams that I think probably deserve a
Yeah,
bigger like an Adelaide Oval game, and they're going to be playing at Glenelg or Norwood. So
that's right.
it'll be fascinating. Again, do I think it's perfect? No. Do I think the SA people will go? Yes. I think they're footy mad enough they will, but that is my worry. My worry is the SA people are going to be like, no, we'll just go to Port, we'll go to Adelaide and bugger everybody else. And that's what I worry about. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think it'll happen, but that is my worry that that might happen. And then this thing bombs. And if this thing bombs, then I don't see it happening again. So it'll be very interesting. Like I said, I
It
hope it.
will.
I wish it well. I really do because I think it'd
Yeah,
be fantastic to have a footy festival in South Australia, a footy mad state. 100% agree. So anybody that watches my videos knows I am a huge supporter of AFLW and the women's game. So
right.
I must ask, are you an AFLW fan? And if so, do you keep an eye on the women's Bulldogs and your thoughts on their season this last year?
Right. Yes, I'm a foundation member for the Bulldogs. I don't know how many of us there are, but yes, like, I do follow the women's game. Look, I don't go to all the matches like I do the men's. I'll
Hmm.
admit that. Some of the scheduling is difficult. Um, first you had it in the summertime, and that was really hard. And then this year, or this last past season, as you know, they had it in August, September, October type of
Hmm.
frame. I did go to the final that we played in. But yeah, I do follow them. And look, they're getting better every year. It'll take time. They're not full-time players, but I can see the enthusiasm is there, and it's going to build. But it'll take its time. I mean, men's football has been running since 1860s or
Hmm.
something like that. So these girls have only been playing 7 seasons, and once they get, I think if they can get to full time, like a full time as full time players and training and all that sort of thing, things will change. Yeah. But
100%
yeah, I do
agree.
follow them.
100% agree. Do you have a favorite player on the women's Bulldogs team?
Well, again, the captain, Ellie Blackburn, she's incredible, really. What a player, you know.
She's
She almost got
absolutely.
us over the line, in that final. It came down.
Mhm.
We were getting thrashed all day, and then last quarter, bang, 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 and we nearly stole that game. But yeah, she's brilliant.
Absolute legend. I love Ellie Blackburn. She's one of my favorite players to watch. If the Duggies are on, I have to watch her. She's so much fun. Her and Mon Conti are two of my favorites to watch whenever I watch the Duggies and the Tigers because absolutely incredible, fantastic players. Can't wait to watch it. So I've said this many a time. I have not been to Australia. It is on my bucket list. It is a plan. I'm going to get there. I want to see a game at the SCG. I want to see a game at the MCG. So I'm doing a little bit of research. There's a couple of questions I'm asking here as I want to know when I go. I I'm an American, so we're known for loving our food at our sporting events. What's your go-to food when you go to the footy?
Oh, look, I'm a bit of a foodie, and I don't really like the food at the football. Is just well, it's typical sort of sports venues. They have a lot of sort of fatty takeaway chips
Hmm.
and pies and all those sorts of things. So if I do grab something because I'm hungry, I'll always have a bucket of chips. Got to have a bucket of chips, and they don't really have my favorite. I love a pie, but they don't have my favorite pies at most of the grounds. So it might be a pie or something like that. But yeah, look, the food it is getting better. Like the MCG has some better options these days. Much better quality. Look, I don't mind. I don't mind sort of takeaway food, but as long as the quality's there. If
Hmm.
the quality's not there, it's just really awful. Um, so it is getting better, but yeah.
To each their own. The most popular answer usually is the meat pie, but the hot chips has actually made a lot of people's lists there. So I know this. You're in Melbourne, so you have both Marvel and you have the MCG. So I gotta ask this: when you go to the games, where's your ideal place to sit to watch the footy?
Okay. Well, I've got reserved seats at Marvel, and they're on level 2. So that is just a fantastic viewing spot. At the MCG, I do have AFL reserve membership. And if I can get that second level, or I think it's called 2 and 2A, it's
Hmm.
like a third level, they are just fantastic spots to watch the game. They really are. Um, if I can't get into the AFL reserve, in the past I would sit in the ponting stand, where right next to the members. So you'd go to the third level, but the first couple of rows, and right on the wing, and you can be right on the edge of the MCC members, and it's like you're in the members. But it's
Fantastic.
also a great spot too.
Oh yeah, and there isn't a bad seat that I've seen there, unless you hate heights, then you might have some bad seats. But other than
Yeah.
that, I haven't seen too many seats that look like they are bad at any either of those wonderful grounds there. So one of my favorite questions to ask, and I always end my episodes with this, just because, and you've got many a year of watching this. In fact, before we get to that question, I saw it on your Twitter account. Did I see that you just hit a milestone year when it comes to your membership with the Bulldogs?
Yes, that was consecutive years of being a member, which was a milestone of 50 years. So they sent me a special scarf and a pin badge and whatnot. So yeah, that's consecutive years. There were, when I was a lot younger, of course. You know, like in the 60s, we didn't really buy memberships. My father never sort of bought a membership. It wasn't a sort of a thing to do. But yeah, when I was about well, I'll give away my age. I'm 66. So when I was around 15, 16 years old, I started buying my own memberships, and yeah, 50 years
No,
as a
hey, that's
member.
a huge congratulations. That's nothing to sniff at, and
Thank
it
you.
shows your passion for your beloved Dougie. So we'll jump to it. Last question: favorite game of footy you have ever seen, whether it was live, television,
Oh,
tape delayed. Favorite game of footy you have ever seen?
whoa. Well, we'll take the grand final out of it because everyone's going to say a grand final because we haven't had many grand finals, so it's got to be one of the favourite. But I'll go back to that preliminary 2016. That was just probably one of my favourite games ever. Yeah. Um, and can I sneak in another one?
Sure.
Um, back in I think it was 2000, Essendon Football Club had won something like 20 games in a row or 21 games in a row, and then they came up against us, and the coach decided to do something radical, and that was to entirely stack the back. Back then, you could do that. You could stack the entire back line with almost every player, and only have a few in the forward half.
Mhm.
And that game was an incredible game of chess. I mean, it was just massive game, and my favorite player, Chris Grant, kicked the winning goal with minutes to go, and we won by a few points. And it was just an incredible game to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fantastic, and I love that, and the fact that you've got so many years of seeing games in those ones that just you never forget those games.
Yeah.
That
There are
they
games
stick
like
in the
that.
back
Yeah.
of your mind. You can almost close your eyes and you can almost watch the game back over because they just hold so much for you. It's like me when the one that really got me was the 2012 grand final for Sydney. Like I can almost close my eyes and watch that game because I've watched it every so many times. I watch it at least once a year. I have it on my computer. I watch it every year because I love the game. And it's not just because I'm a Swan supporter. The Hawks were incredible in that game. And the fact
Yeah.
that Buddy Franklin is a Hawk and that it sometimes kind of throws me off a little bit as I'm so used to him being a Swan. But
Yes.
just the incredible football that they play, the back and forth nature. I mean, you've got great players like Luke Hodge, Adam Goods, Kieran Jack, you've got Jared McVeigh, you've got Isaac Smith. There's so many outstanding players in that game. It was champagne footy. Absolutely love it. But those are just ones you just close your eyes and you can completely see it. So I
Oh,
love those
absolutely.
games, sir. Michael, this has been a fantastic chat. And again, I love these stories. I love hearing all this information because again, I don't have this. The because I'm over here in the States, I don't have that connection to the AFL. So being able to sit down and have chats with outstanding supporters like you that have 50 years worth of supporting under their belt is absolutely fantastic. So I truly, truly appreciate you coming onto the podcast today.
Oh, look, thank you very much for having me. I could talk about the doggies all day, actually. So, yeah, no, terrific. And yeah, thank you very much. Nice to meet you as well.
All right, that is fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for today's episode. Again, keep an eye out. We have more off-season supporter series. Again, I'm still looking for VFL, Sandful, and Waffle supporters. So if you know anybody, have them reach out to me on the socials. You know my socials there. Let them know. I want to try to get all of these done before March, before we get back into the next AFL season. That is going to do it for us. We will be back again very soon with another chat with an off-season supporter series.
Thank you.